Japanese folklore is a rich tapestry of myth, legend, and supernatural beings that have been passed down through generations. These stories often reflect a complex relationship between the living and the dead, the natural world and the spirit realm, and the known and the unknown. In the quiet corners of Japan, where the old forests meet misty mountains and tranquil waters, the stories of eerie, onryo, and countless other mystical creatures have lived for centuries, shaping the culture and beliefs of the Japanese people. In this video, we will journey into some of the most terrifying yet fascinating legends that have haunted Japan for generations. But before we dive into the eerie tales of spirits and supernatural beings, let's take a moment to understand the unique nature of Japanese folklore and how it intertwines with the culture, history, and spiritual practices of Japan. This introduction will set the stage for what will be an immersive experience, perfect for both those who seek knowledge of Japan's eerie tales and those who are looking for a calming bedtime story that offers a blend of educational storytelling and relaxation. Japanese folklore, much like other cultural mythologies, has its roots in the human desire to explain the mysteries of the world, to make sense of the unseen forces that shape life and death, happiness and sorrow. For the Japanese, these forces are often personified as spirits, deities, and supernatural beings, each with their own story to tell. In many ways, folklore serves as a bridge between the known and the unknown, offering explanations for things beyond human understanding. It is said that every mountain, river, tree, and rock in Japan holds its own spirit or deity, and as such, nature is seen not just as a backdrop to human life, but as a powerful force that is intricately connected to human destiny. At the heart of Japanese folklore lies a deep reverence for the natural world, which is often viewed as both a source of beauty and a place of danger. The spirits that inhabit these stories are not always malevolent, but they are never without purpose. Many of the most famous folklore creatures, like the eerie or the kitsune, serve as metaphors for human emotions and experiences: grief, love, betrayal, and vengeance. These stories often carry moral lessons, encouraging people to live in harmony with nature and be mindful of their actions, particularly those that might disturb the natural balance. But even beyond their moral teachings, these tales also tap into a much deeper, universal human fear: the fear of the unknown. In Japan, the idea of spirits, be they vengeful ghosts or mischievous supernatural creatures, has long been a part of the cultural consciousness. From the majestic and fearsome Tengu of the mountains to the sorrowful and tragic Eerie, Japan's folklore is teeming with entities that provoke both fascination and fear. What makes these stories unique, however, is how they often blur the lines between the living and the dead, the earthly and the spiritual. The dead are not simply forgotten. They are very much a part of the world of the living. In Japan, ancestors are revered, and rituals are performed regularly to honor them, to ensure that their spirits are at peace. At the same time, there is a constant awareness that the spirits of the deceased may linger, their presence felt in the form of the restless Yurei or the vengeful Onryo. One of the defining features of Japanese folklore is its deeply immersive quality. The stories are told with such vividness and detail that they seem to come alive in the listener's mind. In many ways, this is what makes them ideal for bedtime-style storytelling. The legends of Japan's haunted forests, cursed mountains, and eerie spirits create a sense of atmosphere that is both calming and mysterious. For those seeking sleep or relaxation, these stories are ideal because they allow the mind to wander into the realms of the fantastical while still keeping a soft, reflective tone. The legends are never meant to instill fear for the sake of fear, but rather to evoke a sense of wonder, awe, and respect for the unseen forces that govern the world. As we journey through these stories, it is important to remember that Japanese folklore is not just about ghosts and monsters. It is also about understanding complexities of human emotions and the ways in which they interact with the world around us. Many of these tales are deeply tragic, telling the stories of people who were wronged in life and who return from the grave seeking justice or revenge. Others are more whimsical, involving playful spirits or mischievous creatures who bring both joy and chaos to the lives of humans. But all of these stories, in one way or another, speak to the human condition and offer insights into the nature of life and death. For the purpose of this video, we will focus on some of the most terrifying and intriguing legends that have persisted in Japanese culture. Each of these stories have been passed down through generations, evolving with time but retaining the core elements that make them so compelling. Some are centuries old, while others have emerged more recently, but all share a common thread. They are rooted in the belief that the spirit world is never far from our own. These stories offer us a glimpse into a world where the supernatural and the earthly coexist, where spirits and humans are intricately connected, and where every shadow in the forest or every whisper in the wind could be a reminder that the past is never truly gone. The tone of this video is intended to be soothing and immersive. The storytelling style will be calm and deliberate, allowing the listener to drift into a state of relaxation while still engaging with the tales being told. While these stories may seem unsettling at times, the focus will be on the atmosphere they create, an atmosphere of quiet mystery and peaceful reflection. By the end of the video, we hope to leave the listener with a sense of calm satisfaction, having explored the fascinating world of Japanese folklore in a way that is both informative and relaxing. As we delve deeper into the legends of Japan, we will encounter a variety of creatures, spirits, and supernatural phenomena that have captured the imaginations of generations. From a vengeful Urei to the trickster Kitsune, each figure has its own unique story to tell, one that reflects the cultural and spiritual beliefs of the Japanese people. And as we explore these tales, we will do so in a way that is designed to relax, soothe, and engage, allowing the listener to not only learn about Japan's fascinating folklore, but also to experience the calming influence that these stories have had for centuries. In the next sections, we will begin our journey into the heart of Japan's most terrifying folklore legends. But for now, let's take a deep breath, relax, and prepare to step into a world where the supernatural is as real as the earth beneath our feet, and where the stories of the past continue to haunt and inspire us. As we venture deeper into these ancient tales, we invite you to let go of the stress of the day and embrace the mysterious, calming world of Japanese folklore. To understand the depth of Japan's most terrifying folklore, it is essential to first examine the roots of Japanese mythological traditions and the cultural context in which these stories arose. The stories of spirits, gods, and supernatural creatures are not just flights of fantasy. They are deeply intertwined with the spiritual beliefs, historical events, and social structures that shaped Japan throughout its history. Japanese folklore reflects a society that has long struggled with the mysteries of life, death, and the natural world. These myths and legends were created to explain the inexplicable, everything from natural disasters to human condition, and they continue to hold a special place in the Japanese psyche today. At the heart of Japanese folklore lies Shinto, the indigenous religion of Japan, which centers around a belief in kami, spirits or deities that inhabit all things. These kami are found in nature, in animals, trees, rivers, mountains, and even in everyday objects. Everything in the world is alive with spirit, and these spirits are often seen as guiding forces in human life. In Shinto, the line between the living and the dead is not always clear. Spirits of ancestors are honored and called upon for guidance, while natural phenomena, such as storms or earthquakes, are sometimes interpreted as manifestations of kami. The concept of animism is pervasive in Japanese culture, and it can be seen reflected in many of the country's folk tales, where spirits of nature, both benevolent and malevolent, play an important role. Buddhism, which arrived in Japan from China and Korea around the 6th century, also had a significant impact on Japanese folklore. In contrast to Shinto's emphasis on nature, Buddhism brought with it ideas of the afterlife, karma, and reincarnation. The fusion of Shinto and Buddhist beliefs created a unique spiritual landscape where death was seen not as an end, but as a transition, and where spirits might linger in the earthly realm, unable to find peace until they were properly honored or avenged. This belief in restless spirits became a central theme in many of Japan's most famous ghost stories. The Onryo, vengeful spirits, for example, were believed to return to seek retribution for wrongs done to them in life. The Buddhist influence deepened the understanding of death and the soul's journey, framing spirits as beings caught between two worlds. The concept of the spirit world in Japanese folklore is complex. Unlike in many Western cultures, where spirits are often thought of as separate entities that live in a distinct, supernatural realm, in Japan, the spirit world is seen as intertwined with the human world. The living and the dead coexist in a shared space, with both realms influencing one another. This idea is reflected in the many stories of Urei, the restless ghosts of the dead, who wander the earth seeking peace. Many of these spirits are tragic figures, their fates linked to the injustices they suffered in life. whether due to betrayal, unrequited love, or untimely death. These ghosts are not always vengeful. Some are simply lost and searching for closure. Their existence blurs a line between life and death, reminding the living that death is not an absolute end, but a continuation of the journey in another form. Japan's cultural history has also played a significant role in shaping the country's folklore. The tales of spirits and supernatural beings often arose in response to societal fears and the challenges people face in everyday life. For example, during periods of political unrest, such as the Warring States period, 1467 to 1615, stories of ghosts and vengeful spirits became more prevalent, reflecting the anxiety and uncertainty of the times. The horrific consequences of war, loss, and betrayal were echoed in the ghost stories of the era, where spirits returned from the dead to seek vengeance for wrongs committed. In other cases, folklore was used to explain the dangers of nature, typhoons, earthquakes, and floods, events that were often seen as a result of an imbalance in the natural world or the anger of the gods. Through these stories, the Japanese people sought to make sense of the uncontrollable forces that shaped their lives. The role of folklore in Japanese society was not just about explanation, though these stories also served as moral lessons. Many of Japan's most famous legends involve spirits or supernatural beings who punish human characters for their wrongdoings, teaching lessons about respect, kindness, and justice. In other stories, creatures like the kitsune, a shape-shifting fox spirit, or the kappa, a water demon, act as tricksters who expose human folly or punish those who violated societal norms. These legends often carried lessons about humility, caution, and respect for forces of nature. The mischievous acts of the kappa, for example, might initially seem humorous, but they serve as a reminder of the dangers of arrogance or carelessness near water. Similarly, the kitsune stories often revolve around themes of loyalty, love, and betrayal, and they underscore the importance of treating others with respect, particularly when dealing with powerful or mysterious forces. One of the most compelling aspects of Japanese folklore is its adaptability. While the stories may have originated in ancient times, they have continued to evolve, reflecting the changing attitudes and values of Japanese society. For instance, in modern times, many traditional folklore characters, like the eerie or tengu, have been reinterpreted in popular culture, particularly in literature, film, and television. These figures, once seen as terrifying or mysterious, are sometimes portrayed in more lighthearted or even comedic ways. Yet, despite these modern reinterpretations, the core themes of these legends, justice, vengeance, love, and the afterlife, remain relevant as they continue to address universal human experiences. Japanese folklore, therefore, remains an essential part of the country's cultural heritage, shaping the national consciousness even as it adapts to new forms of expression. As we delve deeper into these terrifying legends, it is also important to recognize that the stories themselves are not meant to create fear for fear's sake. Rather, they provide a way for people to confront their deepest anxieties, whether about death, the unknown, or the mysteries of nature. In a culture that has long emphasized the interconnectedness of all things, human, natural, and spiritual, these stories offer a way to understand and navigate the complex relationships between the living and the dead, the seen and the unseen. They offer a framework for understanding the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth, where even the most terrifying creatures can have a purpose beyond mere horror. And in this way, Japanese folklore becomes more than just a collection of stories. It is a lens through which we can view the human experience in all its complexity. In the next sections, we will begin to explore specific legends and supernatural creatures that populate Japan's folklore. These tales are often haunting, sometimes tragic, but always captivating. Each story offers a glimpse into a world where spirits and humans are bound together by fate, where the past continues to shape the present, and where every shadow, every whisper wind, may hold the presence of a long-forgotten spirit. As we venture deeper into these chilling tales, it is important to remember the cultural and spiritual context from which they arise. For in understanding the rich history of Japanese folklore, we can better appreciate the depth and meaning behind the most terrifying of its legends. In the realm of Japanese folklore, few figures evoke as much fascination and terror as the eerie, restless spirits of the dead who have not found peace. These spirits, which are often depicted as pale, sorrowful figures draped in white funeral garments with long, unkempt hair and empty, hollow eyes, are central to Japan's ghost stories and supernatural beliefs. The eerie are the restless souls of individuals who have died under tragic or unnatural circumstances, and whose spirits linger in the world of the living, unable to find rest. This section delves into the origins of the eerie, their significance in Japanese culture, and the deep, eerie sense of longing and loss that permeates the story surrounding them. The concept of the eerie has roots in ancient Japanese beliefs surrounding death and the afterlife. In traditional Japanese thought, death was seen as a transition from one realm to another, but it was not always a smooth or peaceful journey. Spirits could be left behind if they were not properly mourned, if their deaths were sudden or violent, or they had unfinished business. The eerie are often understood as the manifestation of these lingering souls, those who could not cross over to the afterlife and instead remain trapped between worlds, tethered to physical realm by unresolved emotions or wrongs done to them during their lives. The idea of the eerie can be traced back to early Shinto beliefs, which held that the spirits of the dead could either pass peacefully into the afterlife or remain among the living if they were not properly appeased. However, it was during the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, when Japan experienced relative peace and urbanization, that the figure of the eerie truly began to take shape in its familiar form. This period saw a rise in ghost stories, particularly in the theater, where they became a popular genre. Kabuki plays and ukiyo-e woodblock prints often depicted eerie as tragic figures, spirits consumed by anger, sorrow, or jealousy. These tales were not just intended to frighten audiences. They were also reflections of the social and emotional realities of the time. One of the most famous stories involving the eerie is that of Oiwa, the ghostly figure from the kabuki play Yatsuya Kaden. Oiwa's story is one of betrayal, vengeance, and suffering. She is a woman who is poisoned by her husband, who seeks to marry a wealthier woman, and the poison disfigures her face. In the afterlife, Oiwa returns as a eerie, her face now horribly contorted, seeking revenge on the man who wronged her. Her tale is tragic and horrifying, but it also reflects a deep human truth about betrayal, suffering, and the desire for justice. The eerie, like Oiwa, is often portrayed as a figure of tragic vengeance, wronged in life and seeking to make things right from beyond the grave. These spirits do not typically leave their haunting in search of peace, but rather, they return with the purpose of fulfilling their final, unfinished desires, whether they be revenge, love, or the completion of some long-forgotten task. The eerie's appearance in folklore is also marked by its connection to the physical world. In stories, eerie are often seen appearing in places where they once lived, where they died, or in areas that hold particular significance to them. This connection to familiar locations emphasizes a notion that these spirits are not far removed from the world of the living, but are rather still present among us, unseen yet ever watchful. They may haunt a specific house, a forest, or even a river, places tied to their memories, their grief, or their rage. This proximity of the spirit world to the human world is a recurring theme in Japanese folklore, where the boundary between life and death is not fixed, but fluid. The eerie's existence, therefore, serves as a reminder of the fragility of life and the unresolved emotions that can transcend physical death. A defining feature of the eerie is their connection to the concept of yugen, an aesthetic concept in Japanese culture that refers to a deep, mysterious beauty, often tinged with melancholy or sadness. Yugen reflects the transient nature of life and death, and the eerie embodies this notion fully. These spirits are not merely frightening or vengeful. They are also tragic, lost, and unable to find the peace they seek. Their haunting is not driven purely by malice, but by a deep, emotional desire to resolve what was left unresolved in life. The eerie's sorrow and longing resonate with those who encounter them, leaving behind a lingering sense of melancholy that enhances the ghostly nature of the stories. In this way, the eerie embodies a delicate balance between beauty and horror that is so often present in Japanese folklore. The presence of the eerie in ghost stories is also a reflection of the Japanese cultural understanding of death. In Japan, death is not something to be feared or ignored, but something to be acknowledged and respected. The spirits of the deceased are honored through rituals and ceremonies that are designed to ensure their safe passage to the afterlife. However, if these rituals are not performed properly, or the deceased has been wronged in life, their spirits may linger, unable to move on. The eerie, as the embodiment of these restless spirits, thus serves as both a cautionary figure and a reminder of the importance of honoring the dead. It is not just the living who must live in peace, but also the dead who must be given their due respect. The eerie is also often associated with the concept of onryo, which refers specifically to vengeful spirits. While all eerie are seen as restless, not all of them are driven by a desire for revenge. The onryo, however, are spirits who have been wronged in life and who return to seek justice or retribution. The onryo's actions are often more destructive and malevolent, as they seek to avenge their deaths through curses or misfortune. The onryo is a more extreme version of the eerie, embodying the darker side of the restless spirit. The stories of onryo are among the most chilling in Japanese folklore, as these spirits often bring devastation to the living, sometimes resulting in death or ruin. One of the key characteristics of both the eerie and the onryo is their inability to find peace. Their souls are trapped in a liminal space between the worlds of the living and the dead, and they can only move on once their unfinished business has been resolved. This unfinished business may involve vengeance, love, or the completion of a task that was left incomplete. In many of these stories, the eerie and onryo are finally able to rest only when their actions have been avenged, their wrongdoers punished, or their grief acknowledged. This notion that the dead must be recognized and their stories completed in order to find peace reflects a deeper cultural belief in the interconnectedness of the living and the dead. The eerie, like many other figures in Japanese folklore, embodies a complex mixture of emotions. They are tragic figures, evoking both fear and sympathy, as they are often depicted as victims of fate, victims who, due to their own unresolved emotions, cannot let go of their mortal lives. Their haunting is both a reflection of the human experience and a reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond death. As we explore more stories of eerie in the coming sections, we will encounter spirits who, like Oiwa, seek vengeance, and others who simply wander, lost in their sorrow. But no matter their reason for haunting, the eerie remains a powerful symbol of the restless, unresolved nature of human existence, and their stories will continue to haunt and captivate those who dare to listen. Among the many spirits in Japanese folklore, the onryo stands out as one of the most terrifying and vengeful. These are not merely ghosts. They are the souls of individuals who were wronged in life and have returned from the afterlife, driven by a deep, burning need for retribution. Unlike the eerie, who may be restless but not necessarily malevolent, the onryo's very existence is rooted in a singular purpose: to seek vengeance for the injustice they suffered during their mortal lives. Their stories are among the darkest and most chilling in the folklore tradition, filled with betrayal, murder, and curses that spread suffering to the living. This section delves into the nature of the onryo, exploring their origins, their connection to Japanese cultural beliefs, and the eerie ways in which these vengeful spirits carry out their deadly quest for justice. The onryo, like many figures in Japanese mythology, have deep ties to the country's spiritual and religious traditions, particularly those influenced by both Shinto and Buddhism. In Shinto, there's a belief that death can be a tumultuous experience, particularly if the deceased person's death was unnatural, violent, or unresolved. Such souls, rather than peacefully crossing into the afterlife, become trapped in a state of anger, regret, or sorrow. These restless souls are often considered to be at the mercy of the world, their anguish giving birth to their malevolent nature. In the Buddhist tradition, which introduced concepts like reincarnation, karma, and the afterlife to Japan, spirits who were wronged or who had unresolved desires in life could return in the form of an onryo. Their vengeful actions were often viewed as karmic retribution, an inevitable consequence of their unfulfilled desires and hatred. The most defining characteristic of the onryo is their desire for vengeance, which stems from some form of injustice or betrayal they experienced during their lives. They are often depicted as women, though there are male onryo as well, who were wronged by lovers, family members, or society itself. These wrongs are usually extreme: betrayal, murder, abandonment, or dishonor. In many onryo tales, the spirit's vengeance is triggered by a death that was both untimely and violent. Perhaps the onryo was killed in a treacherous way, or maybe she was a victim of a betrayal by someone she loved or trusted. In either case, the injustice of her death condemns her to an eternal cycle of anger, and in death, she will not rest until those responsible for her fate are punished. One of the most famous and terrifying tales of an onryo is the story of Oiwa from the kabuki play Yatsuya Kaden. The Yatsuya Ghost Story. Oiwa is a beautiful woman who is married to a man named Aimen, a samurai who falls in love with another woman. In his greed and desire to marry the woman he loves, Aimen poisons Oiwa, disfiguring her face and driving her insane. Oiwa's death is a tragic one. She dies in pain and suffering, knowing that her husband betrayed her. However, after her death, Oiwa returns as an onryo. Her ghost is twisted and deformed, her face a grotesque mask of death and anger. She is consumed with rage and seeks revenge on Aimen, ultimately causing his downfall. Oiwa's story is one of the most iconic and enduring onryo legends, and it serves as a powerful symbol of the destructive power of betrayal and vengeance. The vengeful nature of the onryo is not confined to stories of betrayal. However, many onryo stories also explore themes of love, jealousy, and unfulfilled desire. In some legends, an onryo is not driven to vengeance because of betrayal, but rather because of an unrequited love or an injustice that prevents her from having what she desires most. In these cases, the onryo's anger becomes a manifestation of frustration and longing. The spirit is often depicted as a tragic figure who was once full of life and love, but is now consumed by an obsessive need to have her desires fulfilled. Even in death, this desire becomes so all-consuming that it overpowers any sense of compassion or mercy. In these stories, the onryo's revenge is not just a personal vendetta, but a haunting reflection of the soul's inability to let go of desires that were never realized in life. What makes the onryo so terrifying is not just their actions, but also the way in which they are said to curse and torment their victims. In many tales, the onryo's presence is marked by a series of strange and disturbing phenomena. The victim may begin to feel a growing sense of unease or dread, followed by inexplicable misfortune, sickness, or bad luck. These symptoms are often attributed to the spirit's curse, which grows stronger the more the victim tries to resist or ignore it. The onryo's ability to curse her enemies is not just about physical harm. It is about psychological torment. In some versions of the onryo legends, the spirit can invade the victim's dreams or thoughts, causing them to feel paranoid, isolated, and overwhelmed by guilt. The torment is both mental and physical, ensuring that the victim cannot escape from the vengeance of the onryo. Onryo are often depicted as terrifying apparitions with disheveled hair, tattered clothing, and bloodshot eyes. Their appearance is an extension of their vengeful spirit, a reflection of the agony they experience in life and the power of their curse. In many cases, the onryo's haunting is also marked by physical manifestations of death, such as the smell of decay, strange sounds, or the appearance of their disfigured bodies. These visual and sensory cues serve to remind the living that the spirit is not truly gone, and that it still lingers in the world, unable to move on until its revenge is fulfilled. The legacy of the onryo has been incredibly influential in both traditional and modern Japanese culture. In the world of kabuki theater, onryo characters were central to many famous ghost plays, where they were portrayed as figures of tragic beauty and intense emotion. Their stories have been passed down through generations, inspiring countless retellings in various forms of media, including literature, film, and television. In contemporary Japanese horror, the onryo continues to be a popular figure, often appearing in films such as Ringu, The Ring, where the ghost of Sadako Yamamura, much like the onryo, returns from death to enact vengeance on those who wronged her. In these modern adaptations, the spirit's quest for revenge is no less terrifying. It simply takes on a more contemporary form. The onryo remains a symbol of the destructive power of unresolved anger and the human tendency to seek retribution for wrongs done. The onryo's vengeful nature, however, is not solely an expression of evil. It is a reflection of the deep-seated belief in Japanese culture that unresolved emotions, particularly those tied to death, have the power to transcend the physical world. The onryo represents the idea that the spirits of the dead are not passive or distant, but active and engaged in the lives of the living. These spirits are seen as capable of great power, both positive and negative, and their actions have real consequences for those they haunt. The onryo embodies a belief that death does not sever the ties between the living and the dead. Instead, the unresolved emotions of the deceased continue to echo through the living world, sometimes manifesting in the form of vengeful spirits who will stop at nothing to ensure that justice is done. As we explore the world of the onryo, we are reminded of the powerful, haunting legacy of Japanese folklore. The Onryo, in all their terrifying and tragic glory, are not simply figures of horror. They're the embodiment of the emotional and spiritual forces that transcend death, reminding us that revenge, love, and loss are not easily forgotten, even by the dead. Among the most chilling and mysterious figures in Japanese folklore is the Yuki-onna, the Snow Woman, a spectral figure who haunts the snow-covered mountains and desolate winter landscapes of Japan. Known for her icy beauty and deadly powers, the Yuki-onna is a spirit who embodies the harshness and isolation of winter itself, as well as the haunting allure of the supernatural. In various stories, she is depicted as a beautiful, ethereal woman dressed in white, her skin pale as snow, her hair long and dark, and her eyes cold and unfeeling. The Yuki-onna's presence is always associated with snowstorms or cold weather, and she is often seen as both a symbol of nature's beauty and a reminder of its deadly force. This section explores the origins of the Yuki-onna, the various legends that surround her, and the deeper meanings behind her chilling and enigmatic character. The Yuki-onna is one of the most well-known figures in the category of yokai, supernatural beings or spirits in Japanese folklore, though her origins are difficult to pinpoint. She appears in various regional folk tales, many of which share similar themes and characteristics, but the Yuki-onna's exact backstory can vary. In some versions, she is simply a spirit of the cold, a creature that takes the form of a woman in order to lure travelers to their doom. In other versions, she is a tragic figure, cursed to wander the snowy mountains, her beauty masking the deep sorrow and vengeance that drive her actions. The most common element across all Yuki-onna legends is her ability to freeze people to death with a single breath or touch. In some stories, she is depicted as a seductive figure who uses her beauty and charm to draw men to her, only to kill them once they are ensnared by her allure. In others, she is a more malevolent force, appearing as a shadowy figure in the snowstorms and blizzards, taking the lives of travelers lost in the cold. One of the earliest and most famous tales of the Yuki-onna is the story of Takedo Yukinojo, which originates from the Takedo region of Japan. In this tale, a young man named Minakichi and a companion, an older man, are traveling through a heavy snowstorm. They seek shelter in a remote hut, but as the night deepens, they are visited by a beautiful woman who enters the hut and kills the older man with her icy breath, leaving Minakichi alive. The Yuki-onna spares him only because he is young and handsome, and she warns him never to speak of the encounter to anyone. Minakichi is left shaken by the experience, but ultimately goes on with his life. Years later, Minakichi marries and has children, but one day, his wife reveals that she is the very same Yuki-onna who had spared him all those years ago. Despite her terrifying nature, she had fallen in love with him and had lived a human life for the sake of their children. However, upon hearing her husband's confession that he had once spoken of her encounter, she is forced to return to the mountains, her heart broken and her love for him forever unfulfilled. This tale highlights the Yuki-onna's tragic nature. Though she is capable of great harm, she is also capable of deep love, which ultimately leads to her downfall. Her tragic beauty and the tension between her desire for a human connection and her deadly nature are central themes in many Yuki-onna stories. The Yuki-onna is often portrayed as both a figure of beauty and a figure of terror. Her cold, otherworldly appearance is meant to reflect the purity and harshness of winter, while her actions are often described as a reflection of nature's unforgiving power. In many legends, the Yuki-onna is not malicious by nature, but is driven to kill because of her condition as a spirit trapped in the snow. In some variations, the Yuki-onna is described as a being who is caught between life and death, unable to fully pass into the afterlife, yet unable to live a normal human existence. Her existence is one of isolation and desolation, which only enhances her role as a creature of death. The coldness she exudes is not just physical, but symbolic of her emotional detachment and her inability to connect with the world of the living. The Yuki-onna's deadly powers are often a metaphor for the dangers of nature itself. Blizzards, avalanches, and freezing temperatures that can strike without warning, leaving travelers at the mercy of the elements. While the Yuki-onna is often depicted as a beautiful woman who kills with cold, there are some variations of the myth in which she has the power to take on different forms. In some stories, she is a shapeshifter who can transform into a shadow, a mist, or even a deer or other animals. These variations highlight the Yuki-ana's fluidity and her connection to the unpredictable and mysterious aspects of nature. In other versions, she is described as a beautiful but eerie figure, her movements graceful and hypnotic, but with an underlying sense of danger that lingers beneath her calm exterior. She is both alluring and terrifying, a creature that embodies the duality of nature itself. Beautiful, yet dangerous, serene, yet deadly. The Yuki-ana is also tied to the theme of isolation and the consequences of being abandoned or forgotten. Many versions of the Yuki-ana's story involve her being left alone in the mountains, either because of a tragic event or due to her own self-imposed exile. This isolation is significant because it reinforces the Yuki-ana's connection to the cold, desolate world of winter. She is a creature who is forever cut off from human warmth, love, and companionship, and her actions are a reflection of her inability to form lasting bonds with others. In this way, the Yuki-ana serves as a reminder of the dangers of emotional detachment and the consequences of living in isolation, disconnected from the warmth and comfort of human connection. Interestingly, the Yuki-ana is often portrayed as a figure who exists in a state of tension, caught between life and death, between warmth and cold, between love and vengeance. In many legends, she is not purely evil, but is instead a tragic figure driven by her circumstances. This duality adds complexity to her character and makes her one of the more enigmatic figures in Japanese folklore. The Yuki-ana's beauty and danger make her an irresistible symbol of nature's power, and her stories often serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of both underestimating and romanticizing the forces of the natural world. The influence of the Yuki-ana can be seen throughout various forms of Japanese culture, from literature to film. Her haunting beauty and deadly allure have inspired many artists, writers, and filmmakers over the years. In modern times, the Yuki-ana has appeared in countless adaptations, from traditional kabuki theater to contemporary horror films, where she is often portrayed as an ominous figure whose powers are tied to the coldness of the world around her. The Yuki-ana remains a figure of fascination, embodying the strange and mysterious power of winter and the tension between life and death, beauty, and horror. As we consider the legends of the Yuki-ana, it becomes clear that she is more than just a spirit of the cold. She is a reflection of the harsh and unpredictable nature of life itself, a symbol of the dangers that lie hidden beneath the surface of the world around us. At once a tragic figure and a terrifying presence, the Yuki-ana continues to captivate and chill the imagination of those who encounter her, leaving behind a legacy of stories that remind us of the delicate balance between life and death, warmth and cold, love and loss. The Tengu, one of the most fascinating and complex creatures in Japanese folklore, have long captured the imagination of the people. Known as mountain goblins, these supernatural beings are often depicted as part human, part bird, with the ability to shapeshift, control the elements, and wield immense power. Over time, the image of the Tengu has evolved, and while they are now seen as mischievous tricksters or even guardians of the mountain forests, their origins trace back to darker, more fearsome figures. In this section, we will explore the many facets of the Tengu mythos, their historical roots, and how they have become one of the most enduring and multidimensional creatures in Japanese folklore. The Tengu's origins can be traced to ancient Buddhist and Shinto traditions, with the name Tengu itself coming from the Chinese word Tiangu, meaning heavenly dog. In its earliest forms, the Tengu were considered celestial beings, but over time, their portrayal shifted, and they became increasingly associated with mountains, forests, and nature spirits. Some of the earliest references to Tengu in Japanese culture describe them as powerful, mystical creatures who were feared for their strength and supernatural abilities. They were believed to live in the remote mountains of Japan, where they would occasionally interact with humans, either helping or hindering them depending on the Tengu's mood or the nature of the human's actions. In early depictions, the Tengu were not the trickster figures they are often seen as today, but were instead powerful and dangerous creatures who could control the wind and weather. They were also known to possess great martial art skills, and were believed to have the ability to teach these skills to humans, though not without a price. Tengu were also associated with the Shigendo tradition, a form of Japanese mountain worship that blends elements of Shinto, Buddhism, and Taoism. In Shigendo, mountain hermits called Yamabushi would seek out Tengu for spiritual training, hoping to learn their secrets and powers. The Tengu, in turn, were seen as both protectors and enforcers of the sacredness of the mountains, guarding the secluded places where humans were not meant to tread. They were considered guardians of sacred, and their wrath was feared by those who violated the sanctity of nature. As Japanese folklore evolved, so did the Tengu's image. Over time, they became more human-like in appearance, often depicted with the body of a man and the beak or face of a bird, specifically that of crow or pheasant. Their ability to fly was emphasized, and they were often shown wearing a red conical hat known as a token, a symbol of their association with mountain monks. The transformation of the Tengu from celestial beings to forest-dwelling creatures reflects broader changes in Japanese society, where the mountains, once considered sacred, were increasingly viewed as places of danger and mystery. The Tengu's behavior also became more mischievous and trickster-like over time. They were believed to possess a sharp sense of humor and a penchant for playing pranks on humans. They would sometimes lead travelers astray, causing them to become lost in the dense, foggy forests. In some stories, the Tengu would transform into human forms to deceive people, either by pretending to be monks or hermits, leading unsuspecting individuals to their doom or to some sort of magical trial. These tricks, though often harmless in nature, were reminders of the Tengu's power and their unpredictable nature. Even when they were portrayed as helpful, the Tengu could never be fully trusted, for their assistance often came with unexpected consequences. Despite their trickster tendencies, the Tengu were also seen as noble and fierce protectors of the mountains. In many stories, they would come to the aid of those who respected nature and the sacredness of the mountains. The Tengu were known to be fiercely protective of their domain, and any disrespect shown toward the mountains or the natural world was met with swift punishment. Their role as guardians of sacred places of the earth made them both revered and feared, as they were not only capable of helping those who treated the mountains with reverence, but also of punishing those who defiled the land. The Tengu's connection to martial arts is one of the most interesting aspects of their folklore. As early as the Heian period, 794 to 1185, Tengu were believed to be experts in martial arts, especially swordsmanship. Their fighting skills were legendary, and they were sometimes seen as the spiritual forefathers of Japanese swordsmanship. It was said that the Tengu could teach the art of combat to humans, but only those who proved themselves worthy of their teachings. The Tengu's martial prowess was symbolic of their association with strength, power, and discipline, and their teachings in combat were often seen as a way to instill both physical and spiritual discipline. Over time, Tengu became linked to the practice of Koryu, traditional martial arts, and their influence can still be seen in the spiritual practices of various schools of Japanese martial arts. While Tengu are often depicted as powerful and skilled beings, they also possess a deep sense of pride. In some stories, they are shown to be vain creatures, boasting about their abilities and showing off their strength to humans. This pride can sometimes be their downfall, as they are tricked or outsmarted by humans who manage to find a way to outwit them. In these stories, the Tengu's arrogance serves as a reminder of the dangers of overconfidence, and they are often humbled by their encounters with clever humans. This dual nature of the Tengu, proud and powerful, yet also vulnerable to trickery, adds complexity to their character and makes them one of the more intriguing figures in Japanese folklore. In modern times, the Tengu has undergone further transformations, particularly in popular culture. While they're still often depicted as mystical creatures of the mountains, their image has become more playful and less intimidating. In manga, anime, and video games, Tengu are frequently portrayed as humorous or even cute characters, often with exaggerated features like comically large beaks or over-the-top personalities. This light-hearted portrayal contrasts sharply with the more fearsome image of the Tengu from earlier folklore, but it highlights the creature's enduring popularity and adaptability. Despite this modern shift in portrayal, the core elements of the Tengu myth remain intact. They're still seen as beings of great power, skilled in combat, and guardians of the natural world, though now their role as tricksters or guides is often emphasized over their more fearsome aspects. The Tengu's lasting influence on Japanese culture is also reflected in their presence in religious and spiritual practices. In the Shinto tradition, Tengu are still sometimes regarded as kami or deities of the mountains. They are often invoked by those who seek guidance or protection while venturing into the mountains, where they are believed to reside. The Tengu's role as a guardian spirit of the natural world underscores the deep spiritual connection that the Japanese people have with their environment, especially the mountains, which are viewed as sacred and powerful places. The Tengu's continued presence in religious rituals highlights their ongoing importance in the cultural and spiritual life of Japan. The legacy of the Tengu in Japanese folklore is multifaceted, and their stories reflect the complex relationship between humans and the natural world. As guardians of the mountains, tricksters, and masters of martial arts, the Tengu embody the mystery, beauty, and danger of the wilderness. They are creatures that both awe and terrify, teaching lessons about respect, strength, and the consequences of overstepping one's bounds. Their place in Japanese folklore is secure, as they continue to be a symbol of the power and mystery of nature and the enduring human desire to understand and interact with the supernatural. Whether as protectors or tricksters, the Tengu remind us that nature is not to be controlled but respected, and that there is always a price to pay for crossing its boundaries. In the dark, murky waters of rivers, ponds, and swamps across Japan, there lurks a creature both mischievous and malevolent. The Kappa, part frog, part turtle, part humanoid. The Kappa is a fearsome yet strangely fascinating figure in Japanese folklore. Known for its mischievous antics and dangerous nature, the Kappa has been the subject of many chilling stories for centuries. These water demons are infamous for their ability to drag unsuspecting victims into the water, drowning them in their depths. Despite their playful and often comedic portrayal in modern media, the Kappa has a long and complex history as a spirit of both trickery and terror. In this section, we explore the origins of the Kappa, its eerie characteristics, and the unsettling role it plays in Japanese folklore. The Kappa's physical appearance is perhaps one of the most unique and unsettling aspects of this creature. Descriptions of the Kappa vary across different regions of Japan, but there are common traits that define its image. Typically, the Kappa is depicted as a humanoid figure with the body of a small, scaly creature resembling a turtle or frog. Its green skin and webbed hands and feet are often highlighted, and it has a turtle-like shell on its back. The Kappa's most distinctive feature, however, is the dish-like depression on its head, which holds water. This dish is the source of its power, and it is said that as long as the Kappa's head remains filled with water, it remains strong and invincible. If the water is spilled or drained, the Kappa becomes powerless, weak, and vulnerable, a fact that is often exploited by humans in stories about their encounters with the creature. The Kappa is said to inhabit bodies of water such as rivers, lakes, ponds, and marshes. In many legends, they are portrayed as creatures who prey on unsuspecting travelers or those who venture too close to the water's edge. They are known to lure people or animals into the water, where they drown them, dragging their victims beneath the surface. The Kappa's most notorious crime is the stealing of human lives, often for the sole purpose of eating them. In some stories, the Kappa is said to relish the taste of human flesh, particularly that of children, making it a figure of great fear for families. There are also accounts of the Kappa attacking livestock, especially horses and cows, dragging them into the water to drown them and feed on their flesh. However, the Kappa's malicious nature is not limited to murder. The creature is also infamous for its trickery and mischievous ways. Kappa are often described as playing pranks on those who encounter them, luring them into the water, only to disappear at the last moment or engage in playful mischief. For example, in one well-known tale, a Kappa challenges a human to a sumo wrestling match, and when a human falls into the water, the Kappa laughs at their expense. In many other stories, the Kappa is portrayed as a trickster, playing pranks on children, farmers, and even monks. They are often depicted as being curious about humans, but their curiosity is tempered by their malicious desire to cause harm. In this way, the Kappa straddles a line between a playful, curious creature and a dangerous predator, making it all the more unsettling. Despite its terrorizing behavior, the Kappa is not without its weaknesses. The most notable of these is its reliance on the water in the dish atop its head. In many stories, the Kappa's power is tied to the water in this depression, and if the water is spilled or drained, the Kappa loses its strength and is left vulnerable. This fact has led to many legends in which humans are able to outwit the Kappa by tricking it into bowing down. When the Kappa bows, the water spills from its head, rendering it powerless. This vulnerability gives humans the upper hand in many stories, and it is often through cleverness or wit that the kappa is defeated or driven away. In addition to their physical weakness, kappa are also bound by a set of peculiar cultural rules that shape their behavior and interactions with humans. One of the most famous traditions involves the kappa's obsession with politeness. In many stories, the kappa is described as a creature with a strict sense of honor and formality. If it encounters a human and bows to them, the human is expected to bow back. If the human does so, the kappa's head is tipped forward and its water dish spills, rendering it powerless. This ritual politeness, while seemingly trivial, provides a crucial means of defeating the kappa, emphasizing the importance of manners and respect in human interactions with supernatural beings. However, kappa are not always easily tricked. In some legends, they are depicted as clever creatures capable of turning the tables on humans. For instance, in certain versions of myth, the kappa's cunning and trickster nature are shown to outweigh its weaknesses, and the creature is able to manipulate or deceive its victims before they can take advantage of its politeness. In these cases, the kappa's malevolent nature shines through, and it serves as a reminder that these creatures are not to be underestimated. Another facet of the kappa's nature is its association with disease and illness. In some regional tales, the kappa is believed to be responsible for spreading ailments, particularly smallpox and other contagious diseases. In these stories, the kappa is viewed as a punishment sent by the gods, a reminder of the forces of nature that can cause suffering and death. This darker aspect of the kappa's character reinforces its role as a creature that exists in the liminal space between life and death, much like many other supernatural beings in Japanese folklore. The kappa, in these stories, becomes not only a figure of danger but also one of divine retribution, reminding humans of their vulnerability in the face of uncontrollable forces. In contrast to the terror the kappa instills in the legends, there are some instances where the creature is depicted more sympathetically. In certain stories, the kappa is shown to have a more benevolent side, helping humans in exchange for offerings or favors. For example, the kappa is said to be a skilled healer, particularly when it comes to treating ailments involving the bones. In some legends, humans can form a bond with a kappa, exchanging gifts or making pacts in which the kappa offers its healing abilities or assistance in return for food or shelter. These stories present the kappa as a more complex figure, one that is not entirely evil, but rather one that can be bargained with or appeased under the right circumstances. The duality of the kappa, its playful, mischievous nature balanced by its darker, predatory tendencies, has made it one of the most enduring figures in Japanese folklore. Over time, the kappa has appeared in various forms of Japanese art, literature, and popular culture. In modern times, the kappa has taken on a more humorous and less threatening role, often depicted as a comical character in children's books, cartoons, and even advertisements. This shift in its portrayal reflects the adaptability of folklore, with the kappa evolving from a fearsome predator to a beloved figure in popular culture. However, beneath its playful exterior, the kappa's dark and dangerous nature remains an important part of its identity, a reminder of the deep-rooted fears and warnings associated with the supernatural. The kappa's place in Japanese folklore continues to be a testament to the ways in which creatures of myth and legend reflect human fears, desires, and values. Whether as a trickster, a terrorizing predator, or a misunderstood being with a hint of compassion, the kappa serves as a powerful symbol of the relationship between humans and the natural world, one that is filled with both awe and danger. The kappa stories teach lessons about respect for forces of nature, the importance of wit and manners, and the delicate balance between humor and fear in the world of the supernatural. The Rokuro Kubi, a frightening and unnerving creature in Japanese folklore, blurs the line between the human and the supernatural. These beings are often depicted as female demons capable of terrifying transformations, most notably the ability to stretch their necks to unnatural lengths. Though they seem eerily human in appearance during the day, by night they reveal their true nature, demonstrating their frightening powers. With their ability to stretch their necks or dislocate their jaws, the Rokuro Kubi become one of the more grotesque figures in Japanese myth. However, their story is not just one of horror. It also carries elements of tragedy, temptation, and the blurred line between the normal world and the supernatural. This section delves into the origins, characteristics, and various legends of the Rokuro Kubi, exploring how this unique creature plays a significant role in Japan's rich folklore. The name Rokuro Kubi comes from the Japanese word rokuro, meaning a hand crank spindle, and kubi meaning neck, which hints at the creature's most distinguishing feature, its neck's unnatural length. In most depictions, the Rokuro Kubi appears to be an ordinary woman by day, living a seemingly peaceful life. However, as the night falls and the atmosphere grows thick with mystery, the true nature of the Rokuro Kubi is revealed. These creatures are often described as transforming their necks into grotesque, elongated forms, stretching them beyond the bounds of human anatomy. In some stories, their heads detach from their bodies entirely, floating freely to cause terror. The grotesque and disturbing visual of the Rokuro Kubi's twisted neck is a symbol of the transformation from normalcy to the supernatural, and it speaks to the duality of the creature's nature. Unlike many other yokai in Japanese folklore, the Rokuro Kubi do not necessarily derive from curses or tragic deaths. Instead, they are often depicted as ordinary women who have undergone a transformation, which leads to their disturbing abilities. In some stories, Rokuro Kubi are women who have made a pact with dark forces, while in others, they are said to be cursed due to some prior wrongdoing or sin. There are also legends in which the Rokuro Kubi is simply a victim of some supernatural affliction. While the cause of their transformation is not always the same, the result is the same. These women become dangerous creatures of the night, capable of horrifying feats that defy human logic. The Rokuro Kubi's transformation at night is not just physical, it is also behavioral. By day, the Rokuro Kubi is said to lead an ordinary life, often with a family, living quietly and blending in with society. However, as the sun sets, they undergo a profound change. The Rokuro Kubi's transformation is often described as being involuntary, a part of their curse or nature that they cannot escape. In many stories, they are unaware of their night activities and may even wake up in the morning to find that they have caused harm during the night. They might find strange occurrences, such as a neighbor's household mysteriously disturbed or items moved from their original place. In some stories, the Rokuro Kubi wakes up to find her body in an awkward or unnatural position, causing her to realize that something is terribly wrong. This involuntary nature of the transformation adds a layer of tragedy to the Rokuro Kubi's character, making them not purely malevolent, but also victims of their circumstances. The primary activity associated with the Rokuro Kubi during the night is her stretching of the neck. In many stories, her neck grows to an abnormal length, allowing her to reach terrifying distances. In some versions of the legend, the Rokuro Kubi is depicted as using this power to spy on her unsuspecting neighbors, peering into their windows or spying on unsuspecting passersby. This ability to stretch her neck into the night creates a disturbing image of an innocent woman turned into a grotesque creature of terror, highlighting the fear of being watched or stalked by an unseen force. It plays on the deep-seated fear of intrusion into one's private life, as the Rokuro Kubi can see into the most intimate and protected spaces of the human world. In these legends, the Rokuro Kubi's actions are often portrayed as an invasion of privacy, as she seems to gain access to places she otherwise could not. Another common feature of the Rokuro Kubi's nighttime activities is her ability to dislocate her jaw. In certain stories, the Rokuro Kubi is known to unhinge her jaw, allowing her to consume large amounts of food or engage in strange and terrifying acts. This behavior is sometimes linked to her need to sustain herself or to feed her supernatural hunger. The image of a woman with a mouth that can stretch unnaturally wide is profoundly unsettling, evoking the horror of something once familiar, human anatomy, becoming grotesque and foreign. In these versions of the myth, the Rokuro Kubi's hunger and physical transformation are presented as disturbing elements that mirror the darker aspects of human nature. Despite her frightening abilities, the Rokuro Kubi is not purely evil. In many versions of myth, the Rokuro Kubi is depicted as a tragic figure who is cursed or bound to a supernatural fate. In some stories, she is portrayed as being remorseful of her actions and seeking redemption, or attempting to prevent her transformation. This portrayal of the Rokuro Kubi as a creature of sorrow and regret adds a layer of complexity to her character. While she may terrorize others during the night, her transformation is often involuntary, and she is unable to control it. This makes her a figure of sympathy as much as fear. In some narratives, the Rokuro Kubi even attempts to break free of her curse, either by seeking help from humans or through self-sacrifice, but her attempts are often in vain, reinforcing the idea that the supernatural forces that govern her fate are beyond her control. One of the most famous Rokuro Kubi stories is a tale of the Rokuro Kubi from the book Quiet Anne, Stories and Studies of Strange Things by Lafcadio O'Hearn. In this story, the Rokuro Kubi is a woman who appears to be ordinary in every way, except for her disturbing habit of stretching her neck at night. She is unaware of her transformations, and her husband eventually discovers her secret. When he learns that she is a Rokuro Kubi, he is forced to come to terms with the duality of her nature. She is both his wife and a terrifying creature of the night. This story captures the tragic element of the Rokuro Kubi myth, as it explores the themes of love, betrayal, and the horrific consequences of supernatural transformation. The Rokuro Kubi is often placed within the broader context of other supernatural beings in Japanese folklore. While she shares certain characteristics with other yokai, such as shape-shifting abilities or monstrous behavior, her specific traits, especially her neck-stretching abilities, make her unique among Japan's array of mythological creatures. Her ability to stretch her neck is particularly significant, as it highlights the theme of transformation and the boundaries between human and non-human worlds. In this way, the Rokuro Kubi serves as a symbolic figure for the fear of losing one's humanity or being possessed by an uncontrollable force. The Rokuro Kubi has also influenced modern Japanese media, appearing in everything from traditional ghost stories to manga and anime. Her portrayal in popular culture has evolved from that of a purely terrifying figure to one that is sometimes used to explore themes of internal struggle, identity, and the duality of human nature. Despite the modern adaptations, the core of the Rokuro Kubi myth remains rooted in the fear of transformation, loss of control, and the terrifying potential for the human body to become something otherworldly. The Rokuro Kubi, like many other yokai in Japanese folklore, serves as a mirror to the fears, desires, and complexities of human existence. Her dual nature, both beautiful and terrifying, human and monstrous, speaks to the struggle between the known and the unknown, the mundane and the supernatural. Whether viewed as a monster, a tragic figure, or a symbol of the hidden fears that lurk beneath the surface of human life, the Rokuro Kubi remains one of the most eerie and captivating creatures in the world of Japanese folklore. Among the most eerie and dangerous creatures in Japanese folklore is the Joragumo, the Spider Woman, a being whose beauty and charm are only rivaled by the terror and destruction she leaves in her wake. Known for her ability to transform from a beautiful woman into a monstrous spider, the Joragumo is a creature that embodies both allure and horror. The Joragumo is often associated with webs, manipulation, and a deadly ability to ensnare the unsuspecting, luring them into a trap with a combination of seduction and malice. Her myth, like many other yokai in Japanese folklore, reveals the complex relationship between the natural world and the supernatural, as well as the dangers that lie beneath the surface of things that seem innocent or inviting. This section will delve into the origin, nature, and role of the Joragumo, as well as explore the deeper meanings behind her legend. The Joragumo's name translates to binding bride or entangling bride in Japanese, referring to her ability to ensnare and entrap her victims, often in a deadly embrace. The creature is typically depicted as a woman in the prime of her beauty, with long flowing hair, a serene and alluring demeanor, and an irresistible charm. She appears to be an innocent, attractive woman, leading unsuspecting men to believe she is harmless. But beneath this facade lies the true nature of the Joragumo. When she reveals her monstrous form, she becomes a giant spider, capable of weaving intricate webs that are used to capture and kill her prey. In her spider form, her body is often described as massive, with long, sharp fangs and many legs, a stark contrast to the innocent woman she first appears to be. The Joragumo's ability to transform between a beautiful woman and a terrifying spider highlights the dual nature of her character. She is a symbol of both seduction and danger, embodying the idea of a hidden threat beneath an outwardly benign exterior. This transformation reflects the darker themes of appearance versus reality, as well as the danger of trusting something or someone based purely on superficial beauty. The Joragumo is a metaphor for how appearances can deceive, and how something that seems safe and alluring can, in fact, hide a deadly danger. In many of her stories, she uses her human form to prey on vulnerable men, often those who are lost or stranded in remote areas, only to ensnare them in her webs once they fall under her spell. The Joragumo is often depicted as a creature who lives in secluded, remote areas, such as mountain temples or forests. She is said to make her home near waterfalls or rivers, places where humans are likely to wander and become lost. The environment around her is equally ominous, often described as dark and foreboding, with a sense of isolation that adds to the dread of encountering her. In these places, the Joragumo can weave her webs with ease, creating traps that are both beautiful and deadly. Her webs are often depicted as being vast and intricate, stretching across trees and buildings, capturing anything that gets caught in them. The webs are symbolic of the Joragumo's ability to ensnare and trap her victims, and they represent the complexity of her schemes. The myth of the Joragumo also includes stories where she is portrayed as a creature of immense intelligence and cunning. She is not simply a mindless predator, but a being who is capable of planning, manipulating, and outwitting those who come into her domain. In some versions of her legend, the Joragumo is shown as a more calculating figure, capable of setting elaborate traps for her prey, luring them with promises of shelter or comfort, only to reveal her true nature once they are too far gone to escape. This manipulation is part of what makes the Joragumo so terrifying. She is not only a physical threat, but also a psychological one. Her ability to deceive and manipulate her victims makes her a predator in every sense of the word. The Joragumo's allure and danger are also linked to themes of lust, temptation, and greed. In many of the stories, the men who fall victim to the Joragumo are often those who are driven by desire or avarice. They may be travelers who are lost or seeking shelter, and when they come upon the Joragumo in her human form, they are entranced by her beauty. They may ignore warnings or signs of danger because they are too focused on their desires, whether it's a desire for shelter, food, or companionship. This blind pursuit of gratification often leads them into the Joragumo's deadly trap, reinforcing the idea that unchecked desire can lead to ruin. In this way, the Joragumo serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of indulgence and the consequences of allowing one's impulses to overrule reason and caution. In some versions of the legend, the Joragumo's web is not only used to trap her victims physically, but also to trap their souls. The web symbolizes the entanglement of the victim's fate, a connection that cannot be easily broken. Once ensnared in her webs, the victim becomes a part of her world, unable to escape the trap that has been set for them. In these stories, the Joragumo is a metaphor for the consequences of becoming trapped in one's own desires or actions. Her webs represent the ways in which people can become ensnared by their choices, and once caught, they may never break free. This idea of inescapability is what makes the Joragumo one of the more tragic and terrifying figures in Japanese folklore. One of the most famous tales of the Joragumo is that of a woman who lived in a secluded house near a waterfall. She would lure travelers to her home, offering them food and shelter, only to later reveal her monstrous nature and devour them. In this story, the Joragumo is portrayed as a cold and calculating figure, preying on those who are vulnerable. She is also a symbol of nature's ruthlessness, reminding the listener that not all encounters with the natural world are benign. This story is a stark reminder how danger can lie hidden in the most seemingly tranquil and inviting places. Just as a spider's web looks beautiful, but is deadly to those who become trapped in it. There are also variations of the Joragumo story in which the creature is not purely evil, but rather a tragic figure. In some versions, the Joragumo is said to have once been a beautiful woman, who was transformed into a spider by a curse. Her actions, though cruel, are driven by the pain and sorrow of her transformation. This tragic element adds depth to the Joragumo myth, making her more than just a villainous figure. It reflects the complexity of human emotions, where even the most terrible actions can be rooted in deep pain and loss. In these versions, the Joragumo is both a victim and a predator, a creature who suffers from the consequences of her own transformation while inflicting suffering on others. The Joragumo also has a symbolic connection to the natural world, particularly the spider. In many cultures, the spider is a creature that represents patience, precision, and the ability to weave intricate webs. Spiders are often seen as creators, beings capable of making something beautiful and deadly at the same time. The Joragumo's ability to weave webs that ensnare both the body and soul of her victims reflects the duality of nature. It can be both nurturing and destructive. The spider's web, like the Jorogumo herself, is both beautiful and deadly, a reminder that beauty can sometimes conceal danger. In modern Japanese culture, the Jorogumo continues to inspire various forms of media, from literature to movies and anime. While her character has evolved over time, she remains a powerful symbol of temptation, manipulation, and the dangerous allure of the unknown. The Jorogumo is often depicted in a more playful or less sinister light in contemporary stories, but her core themes, deception, entrapment, and transformation, continue to resonate with audiences today. She serves as a reminder of the danger that can lie beneath the surface of things that seem inviting, and how easily one can be lured into a trap by the most deceptive of creatures. Through her story, the Jorogumo stands as a warning against the dangers of unchecked desire, the power of manipulation, and the consequences of becoming entangled in something that seems innocent but is, in fact, deadly. The Spider Woman of Japanese folklore teaches that all that glitters is not gold, and that sometimes beauty can be a mask of the darkest of intentions. One of the most haunting and tragic figures in Japanese folklore is the Yuki-onna, or the Snow Woman. Known for her ethereal beauty and chilling presence, the Yuki-onna is a spirit who embodies the harshness and coldness of winter. Her story is one of both sorrow and terror, as she is said to appear during snowstorms, her pale face and flowing white kimono blending seamlessly with the frozen landscape. But beneath her icy exterior lies a deadly force capable of freezing the very soul of those who encounter her. The Yuki-onna is not merely a ghost or a demon. She is a symbol of the overwhelming power of nature, particularly the cold, which can both sustain and destroy in equal measure. This section will explore the Yuki-onna's origins, her various forms in Japanese folklore, and the deeper meanings behind her legend. The Yuki-onna is often described as a tall, beautiful woman with long, black hair, pale skin, and eyes that seem as cold and lifeless as the snow. Her appearance is always linked to winter, and she is typically seen during snowstorms or on the coldest nights, walking through the snow-covered landscape. The contrast between her ethereal beauty and the brutal winter landscape she inhabits emphasizes the duality of her nature. She is both a part of nature itself and a dangerous force that can overwhelm and consume anyone who crosses her path. In many stories, her appearance is so mesmerizing that her victims are drawn to her, only to fall prey to her deadly power. She is often portrayed as a spirit of vengeance, punishing those who have wronged her or those who are foolish enough to trust her. The most common and well-known story of the Yuki-onna involves her encounter with a traveler or a wandering man. In many versions of myth, a man who is lost in a snowstorm stumbles upon the Yuki-onna, who appears before him as a beautiful woman. Despite the bitter cold, she seems unfazed by the snow and ice, and her beauty captivates him. However, the Yuki-onna is no ordinary woman. She is a spirit of ice and snow, and her very presence can freeze a man's breath in his chest. In some versions of the tale, the Yuki-onna will spare the man's life, but warn him never to speak of the encounter. In others, she will instantly kill him, freezing him with a touch of her icy hand, or sucking the warmth from his body until he is left a lifeless, frozen corpse. Her ability to freeze a person's soul is symbolic of her connection to the cold, as she represents the chilling and unforgiving nature of winter itself. In many stories, the Yuki-onna is depicted as a vengeful spirit who punishes those who have wronged her or those who disturb her rest. Some legends suggest that she is a woman who died in the snow, either from exposure or because of some injustice. In these versions, the Yuki-onna's death is often tragic, and her transformation into a spirit of vengeance is an expression of her pain and anger. Her appearance in these stories is both a form of retribution and a manifestation of the sorrow and suffering that she experienced in life. She is a reminder of the fragility of human existence and how easily one can be overtaken by the forces of nature. Her cold, detached nature reflects the way that nature, in all its beauty, can also be indifferent and uncaring. In some versions of myth, the Yuki-onna is said to be a spirit who can be appeased or even tamed by certain actions. In one well-known tale, a man encounters a Yuki-onna and is spared after promising to never speak of the encounter. He marries, lives a long life, and eventually has children. However, he breaks his promise when he tells his wife the story of a Yuki-onna, only to find that the spirit has returned to claim him. His wife, who had always been kind and loving, reveals that she too is a Yukiana, and she kills him, taking the life of her own husband. This version of the story highlights the themes of betrayal, broken promises, and the cyclical nature of vengeance. It suggests that the Yukiana is not only a spirit of death, but also a force of inevitability. She will always return, no matter how many years pass, to settle the score. Another variation of a Yukiana myth involves her taking the form of a beautiful woman to seduce men. In these stories, she may lead them astray, drawing them out into the snow, where she then reveals her true, icy form and kills them. This depiction emphasizes the seductive and dangerous nature of the Yukiana, who uses her beauty as a lure to ensnare her victims. This version of the Yukiana plays on the fear of the unknown and the vulnerability of those who are caught off guard by the supernatural. Her beauty is both a mask and a weapon, as she uses it to disarm her victims and trap them in a situation from which they cannot escape. The Yukiana's role in folklore is also tied to the themes of isolation, as her victims are often lost in the snow or stranded in remote areas. The snowstorm becomes a metaphor for the isolation that the Yukiana brings with her, and the cold represents the emotional and physical detachment she imposes on those she encounters. The Yukiana's power to freeze her victims not only reflects her connection to winter, but also symbolizes the emotional coldness that accompanies her nature. In some versions of the myth, she is portrayed as a lonely spirit who wanders the snowy landscape, seeking warmth and connection, but unable to find it. This loneliness makes her even more dangerous, as she is willing to destroy anyone who dares to enter her domain. In addition to her vengeful nature, the Yukiana is also sometimes depicted as a symbol of death. In some interpretations of myth, she represents the inevitability of death that comes with the winter season. Just as winter is a time of dormancy and death in the natural world, the Yukiana is a reminder of the inescapable reality of mortality. Her icy grip on the world of the living serves as a chilling reminder that death is never far away, and that even in the most beautiful and serene moments, danger may be lurking. The Yukiana's coldness represents not only physical death, but also the emotional and spiritual death that can accompany loss and grief. She is a figure who embodies the harshness of the world, where beauty and terror can coexist in a fragile balance. In modern times, the Yukiana has become an enduring figure in Japanese popular culture, appearing in literature, films, and anime. Her role as a ghostly, vengeful woman has been reinterpreted in countless ways, but her core traits, the chilling beauty, the icy nature, and the deadly touch, remain central to her identity. Her portrayal in modern media often emphasizes her tragic and eerie qualities, making her one of the most iconic yokai in Japanese folklore. The Yukiana's continued relevance in modern storytelling underscores the timeless nature of her myth. She represents the power and mystery of winter, the danger of the unknown, and the complex relationship between humans and the forces of nature. Her stories continue to resonate because they speak to universal themes of love, loss, betrayal, and the inevitability of death. Whether as a fearsome spirit, a tragic figure, or a symbol of the natural world, the Yukiana remains one of Japan's most captivating and chilling legends, a testament to the enduring power of folklore to reflect the deepest aspects of human experience. Among the more curious and perplexing creatures in Japanese folklore is the narrated, a yokai that combines mystery, mischief, and a touch of absurdity. Often depicted as an elderly man with a large, flowing head and a mischievous grin, the narrated is a creature that is as elusive as it is enigmatic. Unlike many other yokai who are motivated by malicious intent or vengeance, the narrated is driven more by a playful desire to confuse, deceive, and create disorder. Though he may seem comical or harmless at first glance, his ability to slip into human society unnoticed and cause subtle chaos makes him a far more unsettling figure than one might initially assume. In this section, we explore the origins, characteristics, and role of the narrated in Japanese folklore, shedding light on the nature of this curious creature and the deeper meanings behind his mischievous actions. The narrated is typically depicted as a small, elderly man with a large, disproportionate head, often wearing traditional robes. His appearance is both ridiculous and unnerving, combining the traits of an old man with the oddness of a creature that doesn't quite fit in the human world. His most distinctive feature is his head, which is unusually large and bulbous, giving him a comical yet eerie appearance. Some depictions show him with a strange, almost mischievous grin, further emphasizing his trickster nature. Despite his outwardly benign or even humorous appearance, the Nurerihayon is capable of causing great trouble when he enters human households. The behavior of the Nurerihayon is what sets him apart from other yokai. While many spirits or demons in Japanese folklore are driven by rage, revenge, or malice, the Nurerihayon's actions are more whimsical and playful. He is known for sneaking into homes at night, often when the residents are asleep or unaware. Once inside, he may wander around, sipping tea, lounging in chairs, or simply behaving like an ordinary human. However, the key to his mischief lies in his ability to blend into human society unnoticed. He doesn't cause harm in the traditional sense, but rather creates a sense of confusion and unease by pretending to be a normal person. The household members, upon awakening, would find him sitting at their table or in their living room, acting as though he belonged there. His presence, though not overtly threatening, disrupts the normal order of things, creating an unsettling atmosphere. The Nurerihayon's ability to disguise himself and infiltrate human society is one of his defining traits. He is a master of disguise and deception, able to move unseen and unnoticed in the human world. In some legends, he is said to take on the appearance of a human being, either by shape-shifting or by wearing a disguise, making it impossible for others to tell that he is not truly human. This ability to blend in so seamlessly with the human world highlights the theme of appearance versus reality in Japanese folklore. The Nurerihayon's disguise serves as a reminder that not everything is as it seems, and that there are forces in the world that exist just outside the boundaries of human perception. Despite his ability to mimic human behavior, the Nurerihayon is often portrayed as an outsider, a creature who does not truly belong in the human world. His large, absurdly shaped head and comical appearance mark him as different from those around him, and his behavior often reflects this alien quality. In many stories, the Nurerihayon's intrusion into human homes serves as a reminder of the thin line between the human world and the supernatural. He represents the idea of the other, the entity that exists just beyond the limits of human understanding, capable of slipping into our lives when we least expect it. While the Nurerihayon does not typically engage in violence or harm, his presence is often unsettling. In some versions of the myth, his pranks take on more sinister undertones. For example, he might impersonate a family member or a guest, confusing the household members and causing them to question their own perceptions. His actions, though seemingly innocent, have a disorienting effect on those around him. The fact that he can wander into a house, acting as if he belongs there, challenges the concept of home and safety. Home is traditionally seen as a sanctuary from the outside world, but the Nurerihayon, by entering without invitation, symbolizes a break in this boundary between the familiar and the foreign. Another significant aspect of the Nurerihayon's legend is his association with the night. Many of the stories surrounding the Nurerihayon involve his appearance during the quiet hours of darkness, when people are most vulnerable and unaware of what is happening around them. This nocturnal behavior ties the Nurerihayon to the world of the unseen, the supernatural forces that stir when human consciousness is at rest. His ability to move in and out of human lives undetected plays on the fear of the unknown, as well as the idea that the world we perceive during the day is not the same as the one that exists after dark. Despite his trickster nature, the Nurerihayon is not entirely evil. His actions may cause confusion and minor chaos, but they do not result in lasting harm. This sets him apart from many other yokai, who are often driven by malice or desire for destruction. The Nurerihayon, in his playful yet disruptive manner, serves more as a reminder of the impermanence and unpredictability of life. His pranks highlight the transient nature of human existence, where things may appear to be in order one moment and then be thrown into disarray the next. The sense of unease that the Nurerihayon leaves behind reflects the unpredictable and uncontrollable aspect of the world, suggesting that not everything in life can be neatly organized or understood. In some versions of the myth, the Nurerihayon is said to be a mischievous spirit that delights in playing pranks on specific individuals, often those who are too complacent or self-assured. He may target people who think they are in control of their lives, challenging their sense of certainty by disrupting their routine. In these stories, the Nurerihayon serves as a kind of cosmic trickster, reminding humans of their vulnerability and the limits of their control. His presence acts as a subtle disruption, a reminder that the world around us is full of unknowns and forces that we cannot always predict or manage. Despite his relatively harmless nature, the Narrated antics have often been depicted as part of a larger theme in Japanese folklore, the blurring of the boundaries between the human world and the supernatural. The yokai, like the Narrated, exist in the spaces between these worlds, slipping into human lives when the veil between the two realms is thin. This theme of boundary crossing is central to many yokai stories, where creatures like the Narrated serve as symbols of the ways in which the supernatural world is ever present, even in the most mundane aspects of life. The legacy of the Narrated continues to be felt in modern Japanese media, where his antics are often portrayed with a sense of humor and lightheartedness. The character has appeared in anime, manga, and other forms of storytelling, often as a playful trickster who adds an element of fun and mischief to the story. While his role in modern media is often less menacing than in traditional folklore, the core elements of his character, the disguise, the mischief, and the ability to unsettle, remain intact. His continued popularity reflects the enduring appeal of this strange and enigmatic yokai, whose pranks serve as both a source of amusement and a subtle reminder of the mysteries that lie just beyond human perception. In conclusion, the Narrated is a yokai that embodies the themes of trickery, deception, and the tenuous relationship between the human and supernatural realms. His playful antics may seem harmless at first, but his ability to infiltrate human lives and cause confusion reveals deeper, more unsettling truths about the nature of the world. The Narrated represents the unseen forces that shape our lives, often slipping in unnoticed and disrupting the order we take for granted. Through his mischievous actions, he challenges our perceptions of reality and reminds us that the world is far stranger and more unpredictable than we often realize. The Tengu, often depicted as bird-like creatures or half-human, half-bird beings, have a complex and multifaceted role in Japanese folklore. As guardians of the mountains and masters of the skies, these mythical beings are as feared as they are revered. Known for their martial prowess, supernatural abilities, and fierce temperaments, the Tengu are figures of both respect and caution, embodying the spirit of nature and the forces that shape the natural world. Though initially viewed as malevolent over time, the Tengu have evolved in their depiction, becoming symbols of discipline, spiritual power, and the balance between humanity and the untamed wilderness. In this section, we will explore the origins, characteristics, and role of the Tengu in Japanese folklore, shedding light on their evolution from feared demons to revered guardians. The Tengu are most commonly associated with mountains, particularly the sacred mountains of Japan. These creatures are believed to inhabit the high, isolated peaks of mountains, where they watch over the wilderness and guard the sacred sites that the landscape. Their connection to the mountains emphasizes their role as guardians of the natural world. Creatures who live in harmony with nature, yet possess the power to control and influence the environment around them. The Tengu are often described as having the appearance of a humanoid figure with bird-like features, such as a beak, wings, and feathers. Some depictions show them as having a human body with a bird's head, while others show them as fully avian in form, with large wings and sharp talons. The varying depictions of the Tengu highlight their dual nature. They are both part of the human world and part of the animal world, existing in the liminal space between the two. In early Japanese folklore, the Tengu were often seen as malevolent and mischievous beings. Their behavior was associated with arrogance and pride, and they were said to harass travelers, mislead those who ventured into the mountains, and cause confusion and chaos. The Tengu were notorious for their trickery, using their supernatural abilities to deceive and confuse those who came too close to their domain. In some stories, they would lead people astray, causing them to become lost in the mountains or even driving them to madness. The Tengu were believed to have the ability to create powerful illusions, manipulating perception of those around them and causing them to see things that were not truly there. These tricks made the Tengu feared by locals, and they were often associated with misfortune and bad luck. Despite their reputation for mischief, the Tengu were also seen as beings of immense power. Their martial arts skills were legendary, and they were said to possess supernatural abilities that allowed them to perform feats that humans could not even begin to comprehend. Some tales describe the Tengu as skilled sword fighters, capable of wielding weapons with incredible precision and speed. Others speak of their ability to fly, soaring high above the mountains with ease, or to control the wind and weather. The Tengu's martial prowess and supernatural abilities made them a force to be reckoned with, and they were often invoked in stories as powerful opponents or as beings who could help or hinder those seeking knowledge or enlightenment. Over time, the image of the Tengu evolved. While they were once feared and despised, they gradually came to be seen as guardians and protectors of the sacred mountains. In the context of Buddhist teachings, the Tengu's fierce and powerful nature became associated with discipline, strength, and a path to spiritual enlightenment. The Tengu's martial prowess was no longer viewed solely as a source of fear, but as a metaphor for the inner strength required to overcome the obstacles that one encounters on the spiritual path. In this way, the Tengu became symbols of perseverance, discipline, and the unwavering pursuit of spiritual goals. Their once negative traits were reframed as qualities to be respected and admired. One of the most significant aspects of the Tengu's evolution was their connection to the Shugendo tradition, a Japanese spiritual path that blends elements of Shinto, Buddhism, and Taoism. Shugendo practitioners, known as Yamabushi, were mountain ascetics who believed that the mountains were sacred places where one could encounter divine beings and gain spiritual insight. The Tengu, with their deep connection to the mountains and their reputation as powerful beings, became an integral part of the Shugendo belief system. In this context, the Tengu were seen not as mischievous demons, but as protectors and guides for those on the spiritual path. They were believed to possess great wisdom and could offer guidance to those who sought enlightenment in the mountains. The Tengu's association with martial arts also became a significant part of their identity. As Japan's martial traditions developed, the Tengu were often linked to the teachings of swordsmanship and other martial disciplines. They were believed to be masters of martial arts, capable of teaching the secrets of combat to those worthy of their knowledge. In some stories, the Tengu are depicted as both fierce warriors and wise teachers, passing on their knowledge of combat to those who seek it. This connection to martial arts further cemented their role as symbols of discipline, strength, and self-mastery. The Tengu also became associated with the concept of balance. As beings who inhabit the space between the human world and the natural world, they embody the delicate equilibrium that exists between civilization and wilderness. In many stories, the Tengu are depicted as defenders of the mountains, protecting the sacred lands from human encroachment and ensuring that the natural world remains untouched. They are guardians of the balance between humanity and nature, ensuring that neither side oversteps its boundaries. This role as guardians of the natural world is reflected in the Tengu's behavior, as they are often portrayed as seeking to maintain harmony and order in the mountains. However, their trickster tendencies remind humanity that nature is unpredictable and uncontrollable, and that balance must be maintained through respect and understanding rather than domination. The Tengu's connection to the natural world extends beyond their role as guardians of the mountains. In some versions of their legend, the Tengu are said to possess the ability to communicate with animals and the elements. They are often portrayed as intermediaries between humans and nature, capable of negotiating with the forces of the natural world. This connection to the natural world gives the Tengu a deeper, almost mystical quality, as they represent the power of the earth, the wind, and the sky. Their ability to control the elements further underscores their role as powerful beings who exist outside the confines of human understanding. Despite their fearsome reputation, the Tengu are also portrayed as complex and multifaceted figures. They are not purely malevolent, but neither are they entirely benevolent. Their actions are often driven by a sense of duty to protect the sacredness of the mountains and the balance of nature. They may be harsh in their methods, but their ultimate goal is to preserve the integrity of the natural world. In this sense, the Tengu are both protectors and challengers, testing those who venture into their domain and guiding them toward greater wisdom and understanding. In modern Japanese culture, the Tengu continue to be depicted in various forms of media, from traditional woodblock prints to manga, anime, and video games. While their portrayal has evolved, the core aspects of their character remain intact. The Tengu is still a figure of strength, discipline, and connection to the natural world. In contemporary stories, the Tengu may be portrayed as wise mentors, fierce warriors, or cunning tricksters, but they retain their association with the mountains and the spiritual journey. Their image continues to serve as a reminder of the power and mystery of the natural world, and the importance of balance, respect, and self-discipline in the pursuit of enlightenment. In conclusion, the Tengu are one of the most fascinating and complex creatures in Japanese folklore. Their evolution from mischievous demons to revered guardians reflects the changing attitudes toward nature, spirituality, and human existence. The Tengu's martial prowess, connection to mountains, and ability to navigate the boundaries between the human and natural worlds make them figures of immense power and importance. Whether as protectors of the mountains, teachers of martial arts, or guardians of balance, the Tengu remain one of the most enduring and compelling figures in the rich tapestry of Japanese mythology. In the realm of Japanese folklore, few creatures are as chilling yet fascinating as the Rokuro Kubi. These eerie beings, whose names translate to twist-necked demons, are often depicted as ordinary humans by day, but reveal their true, disturbing nature by night. The Rokuro Kubi are most infamous for their ability to stretch their necks to alarming lengths or even detach them entirely, often using this ability to create terror in unsuspecting victims. However, while their supernatural powers are undeniably frightening, the Rokuro Kubi also represent deeper, more complex themes within Japanese mythology, particularly the ways in which inner desires, guilt, and transformations can manifest in monstrous forms. This section explores the nature, origin, and evolution of the Rokuro Kubi, as well as their symbolic significance within the context of Japanese ghost stories. The Rokuro Kubi's most iconic feature is their ability to elongate their necks, a transformation that often occurs at night when they slip out of their human skins and become something far more sinister. In traditional depictions, they appear as ordinary women, sometimes married, who live quiet lives during the day. They are often portrayed as graceful, beautiful, and charming, blending seamlessly into their communities. However, once night falls, their true nature emerges. With a single twist or stretch, their necks grow to terrifying lengths, sometimes even reaching the ceiling or extend to such a degree that they can observe people from the shadows or creep through windows. This grotesque stretching is often accompanied by other disorienting traits, such as glowing eyes or unnatural movements. The image of a woman with a neck unnaturally extended or separated from her body evokes a deep sense of unease, symbolizing a disruption in the natural order and a violation of what is considered normal. In many stories, the Rokuro Kubi is not only capable of stretching their necks, but also of detaching their heads completely from their bodies. In these darker depictions, the severed head floats through the air like a ghost, searching for blood to drink or victims to frighten. This terrifying ability to detach one's head from the body is deeply symbolic. In folklore, the head is often considered the seat of the soul, consciousness, and identity. The ability to separate one's head from the body not only reflects a loss of self-control, but also emphasizes a complete disconnection from a human world. The disembodied head of a Rokuro Kubi serves as a physical manifestation of inner turmoil and separation from one's true nature, revealing the tension between human identity and the supernatural forces that lurk beneath the surface. Despite their grotesque powers, the Rokuro Kubi are not always portrayed as inherently evil. In some stories, they are simply mischievous or act out of self-interest. They may use their neck-stretching abilities to frighten travelers or to spy on people in their homes, but their intentions are often more playful than malicious. Some legends even depict Rokuro Kubi as harmless, human-like creatures who struggle to control their supernatural abilities. This duality between terror and empathy adds a layer of complexity to the Rokuro Kubi's character. While they may evoke fear in others, they, too, are often seen as victims of their own transformations, cursed to live lives of isolation and loneliness. This theme of internal conflict is central to many Rokuro Kubi stories. In some legends, the creatures are cursed by a god, punished for previous actions or misdeeds. In these tales, their transformation into a yokai serves as a form of punishment or a manifestation of guilt. The Rokuro Kubi is often depicted as a woman who has done something dishonorable or sinful in her human life, whether it's infidelity, greed, or betrayal, and as a consequence, she becomes a creature who can no longer live peacefully within society. This transformation into a monster mirrors the psychological torment of guilt and shame, as the Rokuro Kubi's disfigurement represents their inability to escape their past sins. In some versions of the legend, The Rokurokubi's curse is not permanent, but can be lifted through a process of atonement or redemption. In these stories, the creature must seek out spiritual guidance or perform acts of kindness and selflessness in order to regain her human form. This element of the myth reveals a recurring theme in Japanese folklore, that transformation, whether into a monster or a god, is often a result of moral or spiritual failing, and the key to undoing such a transformation lies in personal growth and redemption. The Rokurokubi, therefore, can be seen as a symbol of the possibility of redemption, the idea that even the most monstrous of creatures can return to a state of grace if they atone for their mistakes. The Rokurokubi's unsettling behavior also ties into a broader theme of the human mind's relationship with the supernatural. Many yokai, like the Rokurokubi, represent the fear of the unknown, the subconscious anxieties that bubble to the surface when one is alone or isolated. The stretching neck, for instance, symbolizes the fear of losing control, of becoming something unnatural or unrecognizable. It is a disturbing image because it taps into a primal fear of the body itself, the fear of what might happen when the boundaries of the human form are broken. For a woman whose identity and sense of self are often tied to appearance and behavior, the transformation into a Rokurokubi could be interpreted as a fear of losing one's identity, becoming something monstrous and strange, and being rejected by society. In contrast, some versions of the Rokurokubi's story emphasize her role as a seductress or a supernatural being capable of drawing men into dangerous situations. In these tales, the Rokurokubi's beauty and charm are central to her character, and her ability to manipulate and deceive others plays a key role in the plot. These depictions highlight the dangers of unchecked desire and the ways in which the appearance of beauty can be a mask for something far darker. The Rokurokubi, in this sense, can be seen as a representation of the duality of women's roles in folklore. The nurturing, idealized woman versus the seductress who lures men to their doom. This dual aspect of the Rokurokubi is a common feature in many yokai legends, which often explore the tension between societal expectations and the more primal, unrestrained aspects of human nature. Another notable feature of the Rokurokubi's legend is her connection to the supernatural world. In many stories, the Rokurokubi is associated with the spirit world and is often depicted as a ghostly or undead figure. This connection to the realm of spirits adds an element of the uncanny to the Rokurokubi myth, blurring the lines between the living and the dead. The Rokurokubi is a reminder that the boundaries between the physical world and the spiritual world are thin, and that even in the most ordinary of lives, there may be forces at work that defy understanding. In modern culture, the Rokurokubi continues to appear in various forms of entertainment, particularly in manga, anime, and video games. Her portrayal has evolved, with some versions leaning into her eerie, monstrous qualities, while others present her as a tragic or misunderstood figure. The Rokurokubi's enduring presence in contemporary media speaks to her versatility as a character, a figure who can embody both fear and sympathy, monstrousness and redemption. Whether as a villain or a tragic hero, the Rokurokubi remains one of the most compelling and unsettling creatures in the world of Japanese folklore. In conclusion, the Rokurokubi is a yokai that embodies both the fear of the unknown and the possibility of transformation. Her ability to stretch her neck to terrifying lengths or detach her head altogether serves as a powerful symbol of inner turmoil, guilt, and the loss of control. Yet, her story also offers a deeper insight into the nature of redemption and the complexities of the human spirit. The Rokurokubi's dual nature, both monstrous and human, invites us to reflect on the boundaries of identity, morality, and the supernatural, making her one of the most intriguing figures in Japanese folklore. In the shadowy corners of Japanese mythology, few creatures evoke as much terror and fascination as the Jorogumo, the binding bride, or spider woman. This eerie figure, a yokai with the ability to transform from a beautiful woman into a giant spider, has captivated the imagination of countless generations. Her role as both seductress and predator ties her to themes of deception, danger, and the blurring of boundaries between the human and supernatural realms. Often associated with forests, rivers, and other secluded natural spaces, the Jorogumo is a creature whose origins are deeply rooted in Japan's rural landscape, embodying both the beauty and the peril of the wild. In this section, we will explore the legend of the Jorogumo, examining her characteristics, the symbolism behind her monstrous form, and the cultural and psychological themes she represents in Japanese folklore. The Jorogumo is most commonly depicted as a beautiful woman with long, flowing hair and a gentle demeanor. She is often shown sitting by a river or near the edge of a forest, alluring and seemingly harmless. However, beneath her human guise lies a terrifying secret. When the moon is high or when she feels threatened, the Jorogumo transforms into a massive spider, her body contorting and shifting into the grotesque form of an arachnid. The contrast between her alluring human form and her monstrous spider form plays on the themes of duality and deception, as the Jorogumo hides her true nature behind a mask of beauty. This ability to change shape also reflects the concept of the other, as she exists in a state that is neither fully human nor fully animal, but instead straddles a line between the two worlds. The Jorogumo's deceptive beauty and seductive powers are central to many of the legends surrounding her. In many stories, she is said to lure unsuspecting travelers, particularly men, into her lair with promises of love or comfort. Once a man falls under a spell, the Jorogumo reveals her true nature, often ensnaring her prey in a web of silk or trapping them in her spider's den. In some tales, she may even hypnotize her victims, causing them to lose all sense of time or direction, leaving them vulnerable to her predatory instincts. The image of a beautiful woman who transforms into a deadly predator speaks to the deep-seated fear of the unknown and the dangers that lie hidden beneath the surface of seemingly harmless encounters. The Jorogumo embodies the archetype of the femme fatale, using her charm and beauty to ensnare those who are drawn to her, only to reveal her monstrous nature once it is too late. One of the most chilling aspects of the Jorogumo's legend is her ability to weave webs that bind her victims. The image of a woman spinning silk and trapping her prey has been a powerful metaphor in many cultures, and in Japan, the Jorogumo's web serves as a symbol of entrapment, control, and the inescapable nature of fate. In some versions of the story, the Jorogumo's silk is said to be incredibly strong, capable of binding not only physical bodies but also the wills and hearts of her victims. The web becomes a metaphor for the entanglements of desire, greed, and obsession, as those who fall into her trap are unable to break free. The silk also represents the fragility of human willpower and the ease with which individuals can be drawn into dangerous situations. Once entangled in her web, the victim's fate is sealed, often leading to death or irreversible transformation. This idea of entrapment is central to the Jorogumo's power, as she lures her victims into her web, ultimately controlling their destiny. The spider's web itself holds significant symbolic weight in Japanese culture. It is often associated with the themes of fate and destiny, concepts that are deeply ingrained in many aspects of Japanese mythology. The web of the Jorogumo is not merely a tool for trapping her victims, but also a representation of the interconnectedness of all things. In some interpretations, the web is seen as a metaphor for the entanglements of life, how one decision or action can lead to a series of unforeseen consequences, much like how a spider weaves a web from a single thread. The Jorogumo, by weaving her deadly web, embodies a way in which seemingly insignificant choices can spiral into larger, more dangerous entanglements, making her a cautionary figure that warns against the consequences of temptation and unchecked desires. In many of the legends, the Jorogumo is not simply a creature of malice, but also a figure of transformation. Her dual nature, beautiful woman by day and monstrous spider by night, suggests a deeper metaphor about the duality of human nature and the constant struggle between light and darkness, attraction and repulsion, beauty and monstrosity. The Jorogumo is a creature who exists in two worlds, one that is human and one that is animal, and her transformation highlights the precariousness of human identity. Just as a spider can spin a web and trap its prey, the human mind can become ensnared by its own desires and darker impulses. The Jorogumo represents the tension between the surface-level beauty of life and the more disturbing and dangerous forces that lie beneath. There are also themes of revenge and justice in the Jorogumo's legend. In some versions of myth, the Jorogumo is depicted as a vengeful spirit, punishing those who have wronged her or others. Some legends suggest that she was once a human woman who was betrayed or harmed, and her transformation into a spider woman is a result of her anger and desire for retribution. In these stories, the Jorogumo takes on the role of an avenger, striking down those who deserve punishment or seeking revenge for the wrongs that have been done to her. Her ability to ensnare and kill her victims is a form of justice, albeit one that is carried out in a terrifying and supernatural way. This aspect of the Jorogumo as a vengeful spirit adds layers of complexity to her character, turning her from a mere predator into a symbol of the consequences of betrayal and injustice. The Jorogumo is also closely linked to themes of nature and the wild. Her ability to move between the realms of the human and the animal world makes her a powerful symbol of the untamed forces of nature. In many stories, she is depicted as living in secluded, remote places, deep in forests or along riverbanks. Areas are often seen as mysterious, dangerous, and untouched by human civilization. The Jorogumo, as a creature of the wild, embodies the unpredictable and uncontrollable aspects of nature, reminding us that the natural world is full of dangers that cannot always be tamed or understood. The setting of her lair, often isolated and hidden from view, reflects the unknown and the fears associated with the wilderness, where danger can lurk just beyond sight. While the Jorogumo is often portrayed as an antagonist, there are also instances where she is shown in a more sympathetic light. Some tales depict the Jorogumo as a tragic figure who has been cursed or wronged, or her transformation into a spider woman being a result of her suffering or anger. These stories emphasize the emotional and psychological complexity of the Jorogumo, portraying her as more than just a mindless predator. Her tragic backstory, when explored, reveals the depth of her character, showing that she is not simply a monster, but a being who has been shaped by hardship and loss. This portrayal underscores the theme of transformation, how suffering, betrayal, and injustice can lead to monstrous forms, and how even the most terrifying creatures may have once been human. In modern times, the Jorogumo continues to appear in popular culture, particularly in manga, anime, and films. Her image has evolved, and she is sometimes portrayed as a more nuanced character, blending her role as a seductress with her tragic backstory or vengeful motivations. The Jorogumo remains one of Japan's most iconic yokai, a figure whose allure, danger, and complexity have kept her relevant in contemporary media. Whether as a terrifying monster, a seductress, or a tragic figure seeking revenge, the Jorogumo's enduring presence in Japanese folklore reflects her deep connection to the primal fears and desires that continue to resonate across generations. In conclusion, the Jorogumo is a yokai whose beauty and monstrosity embody the dualities of human nature. Her ability to transform from a beautiful woman into a deadly spider symbolizes the tension between surface appearances and hidden dangers, while her webs serve as powerful metaphors for traps that life, fate, and desire can set. Whether viewed as seductress, a predator, or a figure of vengeance, the Jorogumo remains a compelling and multifaceted character in Japanese folklore. Her story invites reflection on the complexities of transformation, the consequences of unchecked desire, and the dangers that lie beneath the surface of everyday life. One of the most haunting and tragic figures in Japanese folklore is the Yuki-onna, the Snow Woman. A spectral being who appears during the coldest nights of winter, she is both beautiful and deadly, embodying the chilling power of nature and the unforgiving aspects of human survival. The Yuki-onna is often depicted as a tall, pale woman with long, black hair. Her skin is white as the snow and her eyes cold and empty. She is said to appear in snowstorms or on remote mountain paths, her presence heralded by the frigid air and the eerie silence that precedes a snowstorm. In many versions of her legend, the Yuki-onna is not just a symbol of death, but a reflection of human suffering, isolation, and the relentless cruelty of the natural world. This section explores the origins, characteristics, and symbolism of the Yuki-onna, as well as the psychological and cultural themes she represents within the broader context of Japanese mythology. The Yuki-onna's most striking characteristic is her ability to freeze her victims with a single breath or touch. She is often described as a supernatural figure with the power to manipulate the cold, summoning snowstorms or sending freezing winds to freeze anyone who dares to cross her path. In some legends, the Yuki-onna appears in the form of a beautiful woman, her appearance so stunning that it lures travelers into a false sense of security. However, once they are drawn close, her beauty quickly gives way to terror as she unleashes her chilling powers, either freezing her victims on the spot or leading them into the wilderness to die of exposure. The cold that the Yuki-onna exudes is not only physical but also emotional, as her victims often feel a deep sense of dread and despair in her presence, reflecting the overwhelming hopelessness of their fate. In many versions of the legend, the Yuki-ana's actions are not driven by malice, but by a deeper, more tragic cause. She is often portrayed as a vengeful spirit, a ghost of a woman who died in the snow or was betrayed in some way. In some stories, the Yuki-ana is said to be a young woman who froze to death during a harsh winter, and her spirit, consumed by sorrow and anger, returns to exact vengeance on those who venture into the snow. This backstory adds layers of emotional depth to the Yuki-ana's character, transforming her from a mere predator into a tragic figure, a victim of fate who seeks retribution for her untimely death. Her icy breath and the chill that follows her are thus symbolic of the pain and bitterness of a life cut short, as well as the emotional coldness that can arise from loss and betrayal. The theme of isolation is central to the Yuki-ana's story. She is often portrayed as a solitary figure, appearing only in desolate, snow-covered landscapes where human life is sparse and survival is difficult. The harsh conditions of winter, with its freezing winds and white barren landscapes, create an atmosphere of loneliness and desolation. The Yuki-ana herself is a reflection of this isolation, a creature that exists in the space between life and death, trapped in a world where only the cold survives. This connection between the Yuki-ana and the harshness of nature speaks to a universal human fear, the fear of being alone in the world, abandoned to the elements, with no hope of survival. In this sense, the Yuki-ana is not just a supernatural threat, but also a representation of the real dangers posed by the natural world, where even the most beautiful landscapes can become deadly. The Yuki-ana's role as a bringer of death is tied to the concept of survival, particularly during Japan's long and harsh winters. In traditional Japanese rural communities, winter was a time of great hardship, where food was scarce and the cold could be deadly. The Yuki-ana is often seen as a manifestation of the dangers of winter, an embodiment of the struggle to survive against the forces of nature. Her appearance is a reminder of how fragile human life can be in the face of extreme weather conditions, where a single misstep or a moment of vulnerability could mean death. The Yuki-ana is a figure who represents not just death, but the inevitability of mortality in a world where survival is never guaranteed. Despite her cold, terrifying nature, the Yuki-ana's character is often portrayed with a sense of duality. While she is undeniably dangerous, some versions of the legend paint her as a tragic figure, one who is conflicted between her desire for vengeance and her lingering humanity. In these stories, the Yuki-ana sometimes spares her victims, offering them a chance to escape or survive if they prove themselves worthy. Some versions even describe moments of tenderness, where the Yuki-ana expresses regret or sorrow for her actions. This duality adds complexity to her character, showing that while she is a force of nature, she is also being shaped by emotional pain and loss. The Yuki-ana's struggle between vengeance and mercy mirrors the internal conflict that many humans face when dealing with grief and anger, highlighting the deep emotional and psychological themes that underlie her legend. Another aspect of the Yuki-ana's myth is her connection to the concept of love and desire. In some versions of her story, the Yuki-ana becomes involved with man, often a traveler who is lost or seeking shelter from the storm. These encounters can take on a romantic or seductive tone, with the Yuki-ana using her beauty to entice the man into a vulnerable position. In some legends, she may offer the man warmth and shelter, only to later reveal her true nature and kill him. Other stories involve the Yuki-ana falling in love with a man, only to face the tragic consequence of her supernatural nature. In these versions, the Yuki-ana's inability to live a normal life or form a lasting connection with a human reflects the pain of unrequited love or the impossibility of true emotional intimacy. Her beauty, which is meant to attract, ultimately becomes a source of destruction, as she cannot overcome the cold, supernatural forces that define her existence. In many tales, the Yuki-ana is seen as a warning against overconfidence or the dangers of straying too far from safety. She often appears at a moment of vulnerability, when a person is lost, exhausted, or seeking warmth. The Yuki-ana represents the unforeseen dangers that lie in wait for those who wander too far from the familiar or who fail to respect the power of nature. Her ability to freeze her victims with a single breath or touch underscores the theme of sudden, irreversible change, highlighting the unpredictability of life and fragility of human existence. In some versions of myth, The Yuki-onna is protector of certain sacred places, such as mountain shrines or sacred forests, where her presence serves as a reminder of the power of nature and the need for respect and reverence. In these stories, she acts as a guardian spirit, keeping away those who would desecrate or exploit the land. The Yuki-onna, in these cases, becomes a figure of spiritual power, embodying the forces of nature that demand respect and balance. In modern culture, the Yuki-onna continues to be a figure of fascination, appearing in various forms of media, including films, television shows, and anime. She is often portrayed as a tragic ghost, a figure caught between life and death, unable to find peace. Her legend has evolved, but the core elements, her beauty, her coldness, and her connection to death, remain central to her story. The Yuki-onna's enduring presence in contemporary media speaks to the timeless appeal of her myth, as well as the universal themes of loss, survival, and the power of nature. In conclusion, the Yuki-onna is a powerful and multifaceted figure in Japanese folklore, embodying the forces of nature, the fragility of life, and the complexities of grief and love. Her ability to freeze her victims and her connection to the harsh winter landscape make her a symbol of the dangers that lie in wait for those who venture into the unknown. At the same time, her tragic backstory and duality as both a seductress and a vengeful spirit add layers of emotional depth to her character. The Yuki-onna represents the fear of death, the inevitability of fate, and the profound impact of loss, making her one of the most enduring and evocative figures in Japanese mythology.